Hello there, welcome along. I'm Jeff Davis here from Pivotal Edge AI. Thank you very much for watching this video from our Everyday AI Academy series. And as you can see on the screen there, the idea behind this is using generative AI, 30 minutes or less, to show you how to use these fantastic tools like ChatGPT, Microsoft Copilot, Claude, and so on. So let me just show you a couple of slides just to take you through what we're going to talk about in this webinar. So this is all about how you can use AI assistants as a lawyer to do some basic legal kind of functions. So first of all, let me just talk about some AI assistants. So by that, I mean things like ChatGPT, Microsoft Copilot, Anthropic Claude, and so on. All of these tools are pretty much the same. They have got to an incredible level. We're recording this video in August 2024, and I think they're now operating all at a really, really high level, to the point where for the type of task we're going to talk about here, which is using it for basic everyday legal kind of work, there's not much you're going to be able to do to choose between these different. Now, and I'm certainly not going to get into the arms race that is between the different models behind the scenes, behind ChatGPT and so on, for a couple of reasons. One is it doesn't really matter for what we want to do with these legal assistants. They will all do the same kind of task to the same kind of level, which is absolutely fantastic. But also, I'm recording this in August of 2024. Within the next 4 weeks, it will have changed. And one of the models will be better than some of the others. And within 8 weeks, definitely that'll change again. So it really doesn't matter too much for that as to what we're trying to do. Second point there, be safe and secure. Now, this is really, really important. The best way to think of this is as though everything that you put into an AI assistant is public information, that it's going to end up in the training data. Anything that you expose in there, somebody else is going to get to see it. So if you think of it in that kind of way, and take the right precautions. So remove your personally identifiable information. If there's something confidential in there, take that out and don't include those in the AI assistant. But also, if you're using this for work, and this is very, very relevant to what you would do in work, this is in a corporate environment, using an AI assistant for basic legal work like reviewing a non-disclosure agreement or a contract you've been asked to sign, is a really, really good use case. But make sure you understand what are your company's policies on using these AI tools and LLMs. Certainly if you work for a large enterprise organization, I'm pretty sure your group legal department is going to have a view about whether you should be using AI assistants for it. So make sure you understand that. And you're not just following what looked like some guy who looked like he knew what he was talking about on the internet suggested you should go and do. And the final point there is AI is not a substitute for lawyers. So good news if you're a lawyer, AI is not going to take a job. What it is going to do is make your job a lot easier. And certainly based on the work that we're doing with legal firms, it's really going to speed up a lot of those mundane tasks that lawyers have to do in terms of, recording minutes of meetings, drafting, all of these kind of things. And if you're a lawyer and you're interested in that, drop me an email and I'll take you through some of the amazing things. We've seen some incredible time savings and efficiencies that lawyers are getting. So certainly not going to replace lawyers, and definitely not for some of the tasks that lawyers are absolutely essential for. Certainly things based around trust, for example. So, lawyers, there's a very good reason why they're trusted to handle the monies in transactions, for example. That's not going to suddenly get passed over to an AI agent to take on all of those kind of things. And also just all that kind of practical experience that lawyers have got of how to negotiate contracts, negotiate with other people, and law really is all about the practical side of things as well. So it's not a substitute for a lawyer, but what you can do with the AI assistant is use it as a guide to help you understand things like terms and conditions and contracts. And I'm going to show you some real world examples of exactly how to do that in this session. So there we go. Did say wouldn't be death by PowerPoint, could be super quick. The idea with these 30 minutes or less everyday AI Academy sessions is to take you through and show you hands-on how to do some real things with AI. So let me share my screen with you. For this demo, I'm going to use Microsoft Copilot. As I said at the beginning, there doesn't really matter which one you're going to use. Microsoft Copilot, great tool. It's basically ChatGPT in Microsoft's branding. Microsoft run it as their own independent service that's in there. So if you use Microsoft M365, for example, at work for your email, Outlook, and all those kind of things, you're probably going to have access to Microsoft Copilot as well. So the first example I'm going to take you through is what I'm going to show you is how to look at an employment contract. So what I've got here for you is here's just an example contract. I've pulled this down off the internet. There's nothing particularly unusual about this. I'm sure we've all seen employment contracts and those kind of things. So in here we've got all the different details and all of this kind of stuff. So let's say I want to get this reviewed. I just want to understand what this is. Well, what I can do is I can load this up into Copilot. There's my example contract. I'm just going to attach that in, and I'm going to say review this contract and tell me what I need to know. And these are absolute brilliant use cases for what large language models do. What it's got to do is it's got to go and read a document, read a load of information in there, and then make sense out of it. And you can see how quickly what that's done is now give me a summary as I scroll back up on here and extracted the key information. So who's going to be my employer, what the start date is, job titles, all of this kind of stuff that's in there. And as you go down, it's extracted out, I get 25 days holiday per year. What happens to my holidays that can get carried over? What my duties are, my probation period, all of that kind of information. I haven't asked it to go and find that. I've just asked it to tell me what I need to know. So that's got in there. And I've got all that information that's come through. So let's say this is a new job. This is the contract that I've been offered. I read through it and I'm thinking, hang on, I don't understand. When do I get a pay rise? So, well, let's just ask it. How do I get a pay rise? So you may not have been able to find that in the contract. So what we can do is get it that's in there and goes through and so on. And then it's pulled up all that information that's gone in there. So let's just, within the contract, when can I request a pay rise? And you can see it's now going to look at that. So now it's saying contract doesn't specifically provide a particular time and condition when we can get that, but here's some ideas about when we could do it. Okay, good. So now if I've been asked to sign up to this contract as part of my new job, I might like to have something in there about when I could get a new pay rise. So how do I go about addressing that? Yeah, I need to raise this as my new prospective employer. So why don't I put something in here? It says, help me draft an email to my employer suggesting how the contract could be changed to include a provision for me to get a pay rise. Suggest a clause and provide a covering email that is friendly and professional. And off it goes. So we can see what it's going to go through is a suggested clause that the annual salary review, the employer agrees to conduct annual salary review. Hey, this looks pretty good. Review, take into account performance, contributions, market salary trends, adjustments to the salary, so on and so on and so on. And it then gives me a draft email to the employer, write and discuss a potential amendment to the employment contract, committed to doing this, like to propose the inclusion of annual salary clause. There's the clause. I believe this is, and that's really good, isn't it? That's reviewed the contract and gone through. I've seen the points as in there. I can see there isn't something about when I get an automatic pay rise, and then helped me draft something that I can send across to the employer. So you can see this is the ideal kind of things that you can use these AI assistants for, is to very quickly just go through, process this information and get something very practical like this email that you can then send off to the to your prospective employer to ask for that to be added in, which is fantastic, isn't it? One thing I would say, just be very, very careful. If you've got a new job and you suddenly start using ChatGPT as a lawyer, your prospective employer is going to notice that, right? And if you come through with a detailed blow-by-blow assessment of their contract and things that you want changed in it, you're probably not going to do too well, to be honest. You need to be very clear and practical about things that really matter that you want to get added into the contract. And certainly for particularly larger companies, they're not going to go and amend every single part of their contract. They want to use standardized terms and conditions within their various countries that they operate in, and you need to be careful that you don't create a situation where they're saying, do we really want to hire this person, if they're going to go nitpick over all the details of the contract. So just be careful. You've got a lot of power that comes with you by using these kind of tools. Just think about using it carefully and don't make a nuisance of yourself, because you could find they turn around and say, look, the job's the job, the contract's the contract. If you want it, you need to sign this contract, and then they may not negotiate with you on that. Anyway, there we go. Really good example of how to use AI assistance for reviewing a contract and making some suggested clauses. So next thing I'm going to show you is, we do this all the time, don't we? I'm sure you've seen terms and conditions that you sign up to. I'm going to give you an example here. Looking at O2, I haven't picked out O2 for any particular reason. Perfectly good mobile company. I've used them myself. Nothing wrong with them at all. Very, very good. But really good example of, there's a big professional company. They've got numerous terms and conditions. In fact, if I go back one place on the website, you can see lots and lots of different terms and conditions they've got on there. Go into the mobile, you can see how many different sets of terms and conditions I've got there. I'm a customer. How on earth do I understand what all of this stuff kind of means? So what I'm going to do, look at this one here. So here's the contract, all of the details there. What happens when you take out a new mobile phone, new cable TV, whatever it is, you just sign up to the terms and conditions, don't you? And you probably don't understand what's in there. We all do it, yeah? So how can I ask questions about what's in there and what it means for me and what my rights are and so on? Well, what I can do, if I just copy that URL from there, and I'm going to put this into Copilot, and I'm going to say, review these terms and conditions, give it the URL. I will ask you questions about them. So what it's now going to do is it's going to go off and it's going to go start reading through. There we go. So I've reviewed the terms and conditions. Feel free to ask me any questions. So let's ask something in here about what is my notice period? That's a perfectly reasonable question, isn't it, if I need to cancel my contract? So there we go. Nice succinct answer that I get from there. 30 days notice, and that's nicely highlighted that in bold for us as well. What do I do, or actually what can I do if I get poor signal? Perfectly reasonable question to ask, I think, about a mobile phone contract. So you can see in here, so here's some suggestions that it's given me as to what I can do that's in there. So could I cancel my contract if the signal is poor? And you can see it's gone through and looked up on there and seen report the issue, make official complaint, cooling off period. And you can see it's telling me here that I've got within the first 14 days of the contract, I can cancel. And you'll notice what it's actually done quite cleverly as well is it's gone and looked at additional sources of information as well, and then cited all of those sources for me. You've probably heard lots about how the danger with large language models is they hallucinate things. That is very true. They do that. But one of the great things is this citing of sources. If you can see those sources, then you can go and verify it yourself. And there's an extra step you can always do with these AI assistants is to say, go back and check what you just said to me against those sources that you've given or against this source. And you can get it to validate the information it's giving you. It's a good way to handle those hallucinations that might come up. But really, really useful. Gives you a bit of extra confidence that's in there. What about price rises? When are they, and let's be very specific here, under the contract, when are they allowed to raise my prices? And there's a little very important what I've done there is I've said under the contract. So you've got to think about these AI assistants to be very, very specific with the question you're asking. One of the dangers with them is if you ask general questions, you're going to get a general answer and it might wander off and go and start coming up with answers. This is where it starts to do things like hallucinations is more likely to happen, is when you ask a very general question and it goes off to try and satisfy the question that you've asked. So the more you're specific with an AI assistant and a large language model, the better answer that you're going to get that's going to come through. So under the agreement, they can be changed each April, and then you can see it's linked to the retail price index that goes through that's in there. So there we go. Very quick demo. Just wanted to show you how you could take a set of terms and conditions. It doesn't need to be O2 or anything else. You could just go and take this from any example, any website that you're interested in. All the big providers of services will have their terms and conditions listed on their websites. Take the URL, put it into the AI assistant, and start to ask it questions. And you can go back and forth, use it as a chat bot to ask lots of questions about it. Really, really powerful. And again, think back to what I said at the beginning. These are the kind of tasks that you're not going to necessarily go and pay a lawyer to do, because it doesn't make sense, or it's going to cost far too much money to go and ask basic questions like this kind of thing. But for most of us, trying to read through and wade through all of this kind of information is pretty hard work to go and find it. So let the AI assistant do the hard work for you. There we go. Cool. So the final thing I'm going to show you, another practical example here, is about how to resolve disputes. So let's have a look at, let's see, maybe we've got a problem here, right? I live in the UK and I have a noisy neighbour who has parties late at night playing loud music. I'm sure we've all experienced something along these lines, or maybe we were the one doing it. It's not a lot of fun, is it? Now, notice that I put in, I live in the UK. So just think this is a large language model is what it's called. And the large part is it's trained on enormous amounts of information. So you need to be quite specific as to the jurisdiction you want to think about it looking at. Otherwise, it could start giving you information about how to deal with a dispute in the US, in Australia, or whatever country if you didn't specify. So that sounds really frustrating. It's quite nice, isn't it? You're starting to see this coming through now in the large language models, is this kind of this extra sort of little nuance in there. This reasoning is coming through, this personalization kind of thing starting to come through as well. Dealing with noise neighbors is challenging. Here's a few steps you can take. So talk to the neighbor, keep a record, contact your local council. You see it's very UK specific because that's where I told it I lived. Use earplugs, mediation services, and so on. Okay, so let's just say we took its advice. I spoke to my neighbor, but he swore at me and told me to go away. What should I do now? Now I can see it's given me some very good practical advice. Document the instance, keep a detailed record, contact the local council. They have authority to investigate. You can see I've got a reference and a link there as well. Consider mediation, seek legal advice, use noise cancelling solutions, and so on. So that's pretty good, isn't it? So what about help me write a letter to my neighbour about the noise? And then you can see I'm writing to discuss it. I've experienced understanding the right to. So it's quite a nice, friendly sort of tone it's put here. Understand everybody has the right to enjoy the home. You don't want to antagonise the person. Noise keep impacting my sleep. Kind of request you keep it down, so on. And there's a nice tone that it's giving you here. So this is good practical advice again. So, right, let's have another try here. That hasn't worked. He's still doing it. What should I do next? Okay, so now it's saying contact your local council, report the nuisance. They have authority to take action, and you can find out more information here, detailed records, and so on and so on and so on. And you can see it's really good. It's coming out saying legal, seek legal advice. So it's not trying to act as a lawyer and answer all of the questions. It's coming up and telling you to seek legal advice. And I think this is a really good thing to see, that it knows its limitations. It knows when to make those suggestions to you. I wonder, could I sue my neighbour? Let's see, find out. Could I take my neighbour to court? So it says, yes, I can take them to take legal action against the neighbour if the noise issue persists and other measures haven't worked. Here's the steps. Again, it's directing me to go to the local council. This is really interesting. This point keeps coming through. They can issue a noise abatement order, so they should be the one who steps in. If your neighbour breaches the order, they can be fined. Get legal advice. You can then go to the magistrates court for an abatement notice, and then they may have to pay a fine if they were to breach the notice from the magistrates court. You could also take them to a county court for private nuisance claim as well. And it's really nice the way it's put that on there. So taking legal action can be costly and time consuming. Have you already taken your counsel, or taken contact to the local council about the issue? So I really like the way it's framed all of this. It's actually understanding this. It's not trying to get out of control. It's trying to point us in the right direction to get there. But hopefully what you can see is that you can use these AI assistant tools to help guide you through finding a resolution to a problem. You can see the very reasonable practical advice it's giving you, and step by step it's taking you through what the process is. So suggesting talking to the neighbor, then helping to write a letter, and so on. As we go through, and then really pushing us to go and talk to the council, who've got authority to better deal with these problems as well. But hopefully good demonstration of the kind of thing. So think about other examples that you could use to solve this for. What about if you've got a neighbor who just leaves loads of litter and rubbish outside of their house? What do you do with them? What happens if somebody has I don't know, damaged your car in the street, for example? I don't know quite what my rights are there. I'm sure that we could use an AI assistant like Copilot, ChatGPT, and so on to go and help us understand what that problem is. And hopefully what you can see there is it can answer those really simple kind of questions and point you in the right direction, the kind of thing that it really wouldn't be worthwhile picking the phone up to a lawyer to speak to at this kind of stage. And there's some easy things that you can do to start off. So there we go. Hopefully all useful stuff that was showing you. Let me just pop back across here to my list of things we've gone through. So in summary, what we've talked about here is using AI assistants to review things like contracts and agreements, suggest changes. You saw that with that employment agreement. You saw how powerful that was. It instantly summarized the key points of what I needed to know from that employment agreement. And then I had a question about when might I get a pay rise, and it could answer that for me, and then made a suggestion of a way that we could add that into the employment agreement and help me draft an email that I could send to my prospective employer, which I thought was good and friendly and professional, to help ask and make that request to get it in there, which is a pretty reasonable request. So really powerful kind of stuff. Querying terms and conditions. Isn't that brilliant, just to be able to take a set of terms and conditions? There's tons of them out there. There's lots of suppliers that we all work with, to be able to do a Q&A to ask those kind of questions. Things like, what's the notice period? What happens if there's a problem with the level of service, and so on? These are common kind of things. Often we're not sure what we can do with those kind of things. You can just set up one of these AI assistants, ChatGPT and so on, just to be a Q&A bot and answer your questions for you that's on there. And the final thing we looked at there was resolving disputes. You saw that brilliant way to take you through that. So I hope that's really useful. The point of these Everyday AI Academy sessions is in 30 minutes or less. Done this in about 25 minutes, I think, 30 minutes or less, to take you through some really powerful practical examples of how you can use these fantastic tools. And remember, if you're using this on a personal basis, things like ChatGPT, Anthropic's Claude, and Gemini, these are free tools for you to use as well. So absolutely powerful stuff. Hopefully it's really going to help you. Do make sure that you check out a detailed blog we got coming. I'll have loads of examples of this kind of stuff. And do follow us on LinkedIn. That's where the QR code will take you to the Pivotal Edge AI LinkedIn page. So make sure you follow us there. And also these videos on YouTube, please do leave any comments you've got in the comments section below. Any questions you have, I will make sure that we get those answered. And if you don't want to put it in there, you could DM them to me via LinkedIn. You could send me an email. I'm more than happy to answer those for you. So hopefully that's been of great use to you. Thank you very much for your time.